So, as I said in the last one, I think 2 episodes ago, I sort of didn't know what was going. I couldn't quite figure out what the structure was going to be. The reason being is the case in which I would think that Lord Strongheart wouldn't be the perpetrator until the final chapter, but Van Zyke was in the dock on the second to final chapter, and hard for me to reconcile Van Zyke being in the dock, like both Van Zyke being in the dock and Strongheart prosecuting, while those were happening in different cases, right? And that's all gotten resolved by simply the chapter breaks being there's a chapter break not being on a case break. So the whole chapter break was meaningless, essentially. Now, this kind of raises now let's raise the question, okay, where's the chapter break? Because it could be that the last chapter is just the trial. It's just the last segment of trial in the same case as the chapter 4 case. But then I thought, well, it's a whole chapter. So maybe it's like this is actually a 3-part trial, or 3-part case where there's 3 days worth of trial, and that makes 6 segments, right? Investigation, trial, investigation, trial, investigation, trial. They decided to cut that in half, right? Make a chapter break, cut that in half, so that chapter 4 is investigation, trial, investigation, and chapter 5 is trial, investigation, trial. That would make the chapters more balanced. And then I thought, usually chapter 4, if there is one, well, not usually, sometimes it's a flashback case. So it's a flashback trial. Oh wait, there's a good trial that exists in this plot that could be a flashback, and that is the professor case from 10 years ago. So we could theoretically flash back to there and play as Saishiro Jigoku trying to defend Kazuma's dad. And then we come back to the present for a final trial in the present. And so that's another way you can make it into a full chapter. And it had to be done that way because we didn't have the right context to get the flashback ready until partway through the last case. And so we had to do the flashback midway. And so they decided, because we have a flashback midway, just put a chapter break midway. So it's kind of the same amount of content as like the typical 5-chapter Ace Attorney structure. It's just that the flashback case is in the middle of the 4th trial in the present, as opposed to between the 3rd trial in the present to the 4th trial in the present. So I thought, okay, maybe we're just gonna hit a flashback at the beginning of chapter 5. So that's what but we're right now we're not even jump right into a flashback. We're in the present, I presume. Well, I mean, this didn't necessarily have to be the present. Could be already, because they both occur in the Old Bailey, right? But so I don't know if I'm going to be right about that or not. But this may not be the last trial. We might flash back at some point, maybe. We'll see what happens. As for who do I think did it, of course I think Strongheart did it. Now that we're in now I know this is the last case of the game. Yeah, Strongheart did it. That's my guess. And if you look through these guys, so each of them has kind of a problem. She's too much of a goody two-shoes character. They're not going to have her actually, like, commit a murder. That's just too weird. Right? They probably didn't even think about that possibility. Now, if I were writing the game, I would think about that, but I didn't write it, so they probably didn't. Again, this would also be really weird. There's also no evidence that she did it. There's nothing like pointing to her, right? Sholmes would be slightly less weird than Susato, but again, there's no evidence pointing to him, right? Again, weird, and there's no evidence pointing to her. Possible, but no evidence pointing to him again. Again, it's like a little bit more probable than these three on the right. But like you try to avenge Gregson for his like role in the in ordering the autopsy, which led to the conviction of Kazuma's dad, but it's a stretch. I don't know why this guy is here. Wow, he's like same age. Why this guy is here, other than to introduce you to him so that you can do a flashback where you play as him. Inspector Lestrade? No. She's already been put through too much of a ringer already. Then again, Maya was accused of murders all the time, but no. Yes. No, he's the accused. Imagine, yes, it's possible for the accused to be the real culprit in an Ace Attorney case, and in the last one at that. But no. We've already had one of those in the first game. The frequency is like, if you the frequency they typically occur in, you wouldn't have two of them in 2 games. Huh. Her role's already played. Well, I thought it would be him, and we did find out that he was a gossip, but so he did show up like I expected him to, but he didn't show up as the perpetrator. He showed up as something else. And he seemingly already spent, right? They would bring it back up to be the perpetrator. Definitely helped the professor escape. Definitely did more than he's let on. Definitely gonna have to squeeze more juice out of him. But it doesn't really strike me as the culprit. Not a suicide. Possible. Same guy. No. Already used up. She'll show up on the stand, I'm sure. But I don't think she did it. So, the time's finally come. So we are playing as Ryanosuke, so it is the present. Today, we unravel everything. Yeah, and he said that in the court record, there was enough stuff to determine the whole truth of everything in the court record already. So, the Red-Headed League. I already checked the paper. There isn't anything particularly important on it. Both of nations, the doctrine of laissez-faire has only begun to truly take root in the last few decades. This probably doesn't have anything to do with the case. And then some medical stuff, some public health stuff. It's about some epidemics, which probably don't have anything to do with the case. Yeah, the picture of Vigil, which the background might mean something, because it looks kind of like a aristocratic home, right? But nothing else. The thing is, we didn't use the picture, did we? I forget. This is weird. Oh, we can examine it. Again. Professor Miko Toba has wonderful handwriting, doesn't he? This dark-suited young man is not in the least bit untrustworthy. Is it just me, or does that make me sound extremely untrustworthy? I do wish he at least calls you a nice young man. I'm really not sure that would help. Huh, I wonder why we can examine it again. Oh, it looks like this is some sort of steamship ticket. The SS Grouse, first class cabin, 001. Yokohama departure, 11th of September. Land arrival, 1st of November. Ah, that's the boat that Professor Miko Toba and Judge Jigoku came on from Japan, isn't it? Yes, I think it's called at Dunkirk, on the north coast of France, for a night before finally arriving in Dover. I think it's been almost a year since we arrived in Dover on the SS Buria. It seems a shame not to keep your ticket as a memento to the trip, don't you think? We already went through all this. Okay, obviously, I'm pretty sure I know what we're going to use it for, though. We're going to use it to show what Miko Toba's handwriting looks like. So we're going to show the court that Miko Toba is the one who wrote the autopsy report. Basically. So, that's where we're going to use this, but I don't know why I could re-examine it. That was kind of funky. I believe we already did this just to show that he was dismissed for helping the prisoner escape, even though he didn't do anything besides neglecting to investigate why the coffin was already nailed shut when he was supposed to be the one to nail it shut. So he had some negligence, but he didn't help him escape directly. This we already used to help show that it was Vigil who was the one who rented that room that the murder took place in. We get to re-examine the gun for some reason, so I'll examine the gun again. So it was a gun that someone in the judiciary could have had, like either Gregson or Van Zieks. But also, Strongheart could have had one as well. Okay. We already used this. This is the key that can... we used this to show that the watch still worked. Which is part of the process of showing that Gregson died the day before, and not right when they heard the gunshot. Red hair. We actually still haven't shown. We know that the culprit was wearing this when he walked in, but we don't know. But the culprit, so Gregson didn't walk in, right? But we don't know how the culprit escaped before Van Zieks showed up, or Van Zieks. We know how it's pronounced. Or, like, was he hiding in the room, or is there another way out of the room, or something? Right, that's still not resolved. But he walked in wearing this hairpiece, and so they thought it was Gregson walking in, because Gregson also had this hairpiece on. But it wasn't Gregson, it was the culprit wearing this hairpiece. Candle that was used as a timing device to set the firecrackers off, which would sound like a gunshot at a specific time, which happened to be oddly precise given the mechanism that was employed. It happened to go off right as Van Zieks walked in. Wait, I'm just kind of glossing over that. They say Susato wakes up Rinosuke in person? What? How does she wake up? We still haven't used this yet. It's to show the appearance of Clint. Okay. Yeah, we could examine it again, unfortunately. I'm starting to get weary of examining everything again that we already examined. Oh, we might have to examine something if we're going to use it. Because sometimes it doesn't use right if you don't examine it first. Okay, pocket watch, we use that. It's ID. This it's in our court record, but we haven't used. Shows Seishiro in it. Is Seishiro Ryonosuke's dad? That would be weird, wouldn't it? Because they don't share. That's what this would, like, suggest. This was kind of odd. We're gonna have to use this in the trial, so I have to examine it just because I have to use it. And then Clint's autopsy report. Death from a single stab wound to the heart. Other superficial external wounds indicative of a duel. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand. But no documenting corresponding ink was found. Vital evidence recovered from the victim's stomach during autopsy. Credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. All of this written by Susato's dad. No internal trauma was noted. So something that he ate. Huh. Don't see how it's all there. But that's okay. I don't think anybody could. Morose Susato, I'll be counting on you. Oh, I'll be counting on your support more than ever today, Miss Susato. Miss Susato. Oh no, what's the matter, Mr. Naruhodo? Why are you on the floor? No, I was just saying that I'll be relying on your support today, but I'm so sorry. Of course, I know I can be rather incompetent at times, but I shan't let you down. I will just forcibly put you down. Would you mind helping me to my feet then? Oh dear, I'm really very sorry. Susato-san isn't her usual self at all. But that's hardly surprising, I suppose. She just found out that her father is the partner of a world-famous detective, not to mention... good morning, sir. He has another daughter. Lord Von Zeeks. Thank you for all of your effort yesterday. What? Did I hear that correctly? What? No, nothing. Just to hope we can clear things up today. I really can't make this man out. His face says I hate you, but his words are almost jovial today. In fact, he hasn't been really Reaper-like at all since this all began yesterday. I mean, he's not the Scythe person. Lord Van Zeeks isn't the Reaper, Mr. Naruhodo. A good point. The Reaper, I suppose in hindsight, I shouldn't have allowed that misconception to go unchallenged. Huh? It was my tacit acceptance of that pseudonym. My failure to stop the Reaper becoming something more than a mere legend that led to all of this. But you're not to blame for that, Lord Van Zieks. It's only because serious crime in the capital dropped off so sharply when the public started calling you that. That's why you didn't say anything, is it? To be frank, I'm not sure that was the sole reason. What do you mean? Sometimes you just like titles like that. There's a rumor at the time that the Reaper was really the ghost of my late brother. That having been slain by the evil killer, Clint's restless spirit returned as some sort of demigod, to wield the deadly blade of justice, where I, by dint of the law, could not. Yes, we've heard that story too. When I lost him... Okay, so it is Clint. In the picture, that is. In the painting. I felt as though I'd lost my guiding light. I didn't know where to go or what to do. And so, in some small way, I wonder if perhaps those rumors made me feel his absence a little less keenly. Even if I knew it was just an illusion. Just some nonsense captured up by an over-imaginative public. Or conjured. He was obviously extremely important to you. Lord Clint Van Zieks. Well, what's important now is uncovering the truth. That's all that matters. I know that you didn't take anyone's life. And I intend to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt in court today. Never thought I'd say this, but I can see it in your eyes, that burning desire to cut through all the lies and deception. I can't deny it any longer. You are a lawyer of absolute integrity. And thank you. Not to go in there and do something really crazy, but whatever. Now tell me, why do I detect the scent of expensive tea leaves in the air? Oh, Iris, when did you get here? Oh. Ah. I brought you one of my special blends. Hurley loves it. He says it helps him clear his head. Thank you. Oh, well, except it wasn't for Van Ziek, but whatever. That's surely the first and last time I'll ever see a sight like this. You seem different today, Iris. Oh. Sort of subdued, I suppose. I am not. What's happened yesterday is obviously still playing on her mind a lot. She's clearly very troubled about having stolen that autopsy report from Dr. Tsai's laboratory. Alright then. Good luck to you both. I have to make a move now. Oh, you're not staying? I thought you'd want to watch today's proceedings. Well, I like to cheer you on, obviously. But I've got lots to get ready. Get ready for what? Oh yes. Would you take this? Isn't that one of the little felt dolls usually dangling from your knapsack? Yes, it's a lucky charm. A little Hurley that I made once. A Hurley. It looks more like a Harley. A Harley to me. If for some reason you completely run out of options in the trial today, it's like this game must be somewhat, or just difficult to localize. First of all, because of all the name puns you have to make up, but you have to, like, redo those puns in English. They just pull this little Hurley's ears as hard as you possibly can. Well, pull his ears. That's right, it's a way to bring good luck. I think you might need it. And it just produces some evidence, right? You think what we'll need is luck? No, we'll need whatever evidence is inside that rabbit. What a charming little rabbity version of Mr. Sholmes. Do you suppose this is how Iris sees him? Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Your eyes are veritably boring into the poor doll's ears. Oh, sorry. I was just wondering. What do you suppose would happen if I were to tug its ears with all my might right now? I'm sure that we'll find out when the time is right. To become a proper gentleman, you really must learn stoic patience. But I want to know, it'll rip in half and there'll be something important inside. I just sneaked a peek inside the courtroom, and it seems very different to normal. Yes, it would seem that a certain someone has decided to pull out all the stops. Strongheart, he's here, isn't he? What does that mean? What about Mr. Sholmes, Iris? He's still asleep, right? I don't know. He was out all night, and he hadn't come home by the time I left this morning. Oh, I see. Was Professor Mikotoba out all night too, do you think, Miss Susato? Yes, it would seem so. I telegrammed the hotel this morning. And apparently they didn't come back to their rooms last night at all. Who's they? Is Seishiro out? They? Father and Judge Jigoku, I mean. Judge Jigoku, too. He's gonna show up, though. Jigoku's gonna show up in that trial. That's right, nobody appears to have seen either of them since yesterday. Counsel of the defense and the defendant. He's gonna be a big machina. Gonna blast in there. Objection! Anyway, court is about to be in session. Please make your way inside the courtroom at once. Good luck then, Runo. Good luck, Susie. Yes, thanks, Iris. And you, Mr. Reaper. I hope it goes well. Once again, I thank you for the delicious tea. It was very soothing. Oh, I'm so glad. You must go inside now, Lord Van Zeeks. Lord Van Zeeks has always been the formidable prosecutor I've had to lock horns with in court. But not today. Today I battle with another in pursuit of the truth. I can't really think of the idea of locking horns without it being that you're fighting specifically over a woman. Because that's what the herd animals fight over when they lock horns. My best friend Kazuma Asogi, who I trust more than anyone else in the world. Now I understand what it was that drew me here to Britain all those months ago. Now I know exactly what destiny had in store for me. It's all been leading up to this one day, to this one trial, to this one final reckoning. Play that song that people sing at graduation, except I won't. High school graduation, that is. Wait, is Strongheart gonna sit on the seat? Maybe that's way different than what I expected. Did not expect the judge to be changed out. It feels even more oppressive here than it did yesterday. There are cold stares piercing me like knives from all sides today. Ah, Mr. Naruhodo, look. He's gonna be in the seat. Oh, that's different than how I thought it was gonna be. How are you supposed to get him in the seat? What? If you indict, what if you indict, how do you, like, indict the judge if the judge is the person who decides the outcome? You just like, yes, it's gonna be, I am not guilty. Zuma must have known beforehand. The ramifications of this trial now exceed far beyond the murder of one Scotland Yard inspector. In fact, events have come to light that threaten to rock the very foundations of our country's legal system. The escapee of a condemned criminal on the night of his execution, the subsequent unlawful shooting of the man, and the revelation that prison staff must have been complicit in the jailbreak. Britain is currently hosting influential members of the judiciary from countries all around the world. It is imperative that we uncover the truth in these proceedings to avoid international embarrassment, even though you mean further international embarrassment. By royal decree, this will continue to be a closed trial, and one over which I, male Strongheart, exercise total and unequivocal authority. Is there a unicorn horn on his staff now? This queen they talk about. Six jurors flames just. As was the case in yesterday's proceedings, those here present in the public gallery are distinguished members of our judiciary, assembled to bear witness of a fair judicial process. In other words, a collection of your acolytes, Lord Strongheart. On a personal note, I find this most distressing, Lord Van Zieks. You are a prosecutor of exceptional talent. Much like your brother Clint, in fact. Gonna stab you. In her name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. For the trial of Barack Van Zieks, who officially stands accused of murder. Counsels for the prosecution and the defense, are you in full readiness to proceed? The defense is ready, my lord. As is the prosecution. Yesterday's proceedings brought to light a shocking and disturbing fact. There was assigned to the victim, Inspector Tobias Gregson, who was unknown to his superiors at Scotland Yard. Yes, he was carrying out operations in secret which Scotland Yard knew nothing about. And in those clandestine operations, he had an accomplice. Well, Dr. Daily Vigil and Asa Shin. Mr. Daily Vigil, they say doctor, who would be given the inspector's identification, and present himself around the capital in order to establish credible alibis for Gregson. In that way, Gregson appeared to be carrying out his regular Scotland Yard work, when in fact he wasn't. At the end of yesterday's session, Mr. Vigil, who had been suffering from amnesia, regained his memory. It would appear he buried his memories of the time deep inside himself as a means of self-preservation. Because whilst he was engaged as chief warder at Barclay Prison, he abetted the convict's escape. Mr. Vigil is currently recuperating at St. Sinners. Oh, recuperate? I couldn't read recuperating. Whatever, I'll move on. He's recovered enough to give a signed statement about his movements on the day prior to the incident. He's formally admitted to posing as Gregson whilst investigating the Red-Headed League. Which brings us to the crucial issue of the victim's time of death. The defense yesterday proposed a suggestion that the victim may have been killed one day earlier. This was based largely on the discovery that the victim's pocket watch had not been wound. The prosecution has something to report on that subject, my lord. Really? Go ahead, Prosecutor Asogi. I met once again with the coroner yesterday to discuss the issue. She confirmed that the defense's suggestion could not be ruled out. It's entirely possible that Inspector Gregson was killed on the 31st of October, the day before his body was discovered. I have here an updated autopsy report that includes the amended details. Right. But the official opinion of the investigation team was made clear yesterday, that the time of death was 5 p.m. on the 1st of November. There are indications of an attempt to disguise the real time of death, however. It seems that the natural decay process of the victim's body may have been slowed by keeping it chilled. That's out of the question. There is no refrigeration device in that part of London large enough to accommodate a human corpse. My lord, this is more than just conjecture. There's evidence to support the idea. It must be investigated. We must investigate it thoroughly. Very well. The court will accept the new report as evidence. However, if this updated report is deemed to be accurate, it would give renewed significance to the movements of the victim on the day before the Fresno Street incident. It would, yes. Especially since on that day, Inspector Gregson was using Mr. Vigil to cover up his real movements. It's conceivable that he was killed in the course of his secret activities. Do I sense that the prosecution has some information regarding those activities? Scotland Yard put an enormous effort into investigating that precise matter yesterday, and turned up one little thing, probably. I think we should begin by presenting the results of that investigation work. So the prosecution calls its first witness now. Gina? There we go. State your name and occupation for the court. Inspector Gina Lestrade reporting. Representative of Scotland Yard. A self-conferred rank, but never mind. Gina again. It's better than old bag. What's your problem, Odo? What's with that, Gina again? Look, eh? The boss meant the world to me. It done more for me than anyone else ever did. Oh, Inspector Gregson, you mean? He got me out of the back slums of East End and took me under his wing. Taught me that life can have a purpose. And that's why I'm the best person to be standing here speaking for him. Actually, you'd be the best person to speak for him is the person who was the most the best understanding of what he was doing the day before he was murdered. Oh, Gina. Right, all out of the goodness of Gregson's heart. Not at all that he had his arm twisted by Mr. Sholmes, though. What's relevant to these proceedings is that the outcome of Scotland Yard's investigations yesterday. Why do you hate Gina so much? Rinosuke? Come on. Has revealed that the victim was carrying out some assignment the police knew nothing about. Very troubling. That face. Lord Strongheart knew. So, Inspector Lestrade, let's hear exactly what it says in that report. Coming right up, sir. Bop-bum-bop-bum-bop. All yard detectives are supposed to follow orders and investigate what they're told. But a little search of the boss's office turned up a notebook that had a load of secret meetings in it. According to that, the boss was looking into some smuggled goods dealings that day. Looks like it was a big job and all, but the coppers weren't onto it yet. What matters most is, there's witnesses who saw the Reaper at the place too. Well, there should be more to this, right? Smuggled goods. I don't know, do I? I'm just telling you what was written in the book. Tobacco, tea, spices, medicines, goods of all sorts flow into London by illegal channels from across the globe. It's well known that they're disposed of at regular black markets that take place in the capital. But the police are rarely able to locate them in time. So Inspector Gregson was investigating one of those black markets. But it's been suggested that high-ranking government officials may be involved in black market activity. No doubt Gregson was trying to avoid details of his investigations being leaked to the involved parties. That would explain why he was operating on his own authority without the Yard's knowledge. And do we know where the dealings were taking place this time? In a particular room of a certain exclusive London gentleman's club. And on that day in question, the accused is known to have been there. That's the conclusion of Scotland Yard's investigation into the matter. Just leave out all the important stuff. Just you know, the accused was there. That can't be! We haven't heard anything about any of this. Members of the club have testified to it. There's no question. The accused, Baruch von Zieks, was present. That would be very significant testimony, then. Oh my, but... Lord Van Zieks has made no mention of this at all. In short, Lord Van Zieks had ample opportunity to murder the victim. But like a completely different place in a completely different way than I was accused of. It's kind of like manipulating things around quite a bit. Very well then, counsel for the defense, begin your cross-examination. My brow is like super furrowed. All yard detectives are supposed to follow orders and investigate what they're told.
Hold it!
Really, Gina? They're not supposed to go rogue? So you follow orders, do you, Gina? Nah, not me. I'm above all that, see? Oh. The boss always had special orders for me. Grab us some fish and chips or go and give Toby his grub, that kind of thing. So errands more than orders, then. This detective is still an apprentice after all. Yeah, well, this apprentice ain't no one to sit around and wait to be told what to do, even by the boss. That's why I've been doing my own investigations into what happened, and I didn't find much at first. But a little search of the boss's office turned up a notebook that had loads of secret meetings in it.
Hold it!
So you went through Inspector Gregson's things. Yep, part of the independent Lestrade investigation. I'm sure your superiors would be delighted that you're taking the initiative. So I snuck into his office when no one else was around. Cause if anyone at the yard had seen me going in there, they'd have turfed me straight out on the street. This is sounding less and less like an investigation and more like something else. The prosecution understands that it was this very detective who discovered the notebook. You got that right. Nothing gets past Inspector Lestrade and a trusty assistant, Chief Inspector Toby. We found it hidden in one of his desk drawers and a false bottom. That had a false bottom. That's impressive. And then I went tied myself where no one could find me, so I could have a butcher's at what was written in it. Because if anyone at the yard had found me out, they'd have turfed me straight out on the street. I'd given it a go. A now through, ain't I? Oh, she means like a plow through? And if it weren't for me, it would have never been found.
Hold it!
Do you have any idea where those dealings were taking place? Yep. It was all there in the boss's notes. Let's see if I can remember. As I already said, the illegal dealings were due to take place at the Gentleman's Club. Yes, I remember, but I was hoping to find out the name of the club. That won't be necessary. What? It's conceivable that the club might be used again by the smugglers in the future. Therefore, the prosecution has been asked not to reveal the name in these proceedings. So they won't find out that it's been revealed. But isn't the trial closed? I don't know what all the fuss is about. It's right here. All I've got to do is read it out. And I could too. I've got the reading game buttoned up now. Can't show you what I can do. Go on. What's the arm? The judge hasn't signaled his objection yet. I could try to find out. What should I do? Insist. This is a closed court. The proceedings are confidential. There shouldn't be any possibility of the information being leaked. Well, that's naive. As I explained, there is some possibility of politicians being involved in this affair. The prosecution is rightfully exercising caution, I imagine. No, my lord. The prosecution has no objection. Kazuma? There's no question that Inspector Gregson was looking into these black market dealings. However, it's not yet been established that he was on that particular trail on the day in question. If the defense requires to know the club's name, the prosecution has no intention of being obstructive. Right then. I get to show off my reading skills. The grouse. We have heard of that before. That's where... Was that where Herlock Sholmes was going?
Hold it!
The grouse. What sort of club is that? I ain't got the foggiest. Clubs ain't exactly my thing. Especially not gentlemen's clubs. But I'm kind of curious. They're not places where a foreign student like you would be readily admitted. Have you looked in the mirror recently? I tell you what. Me and Chief Inspector Toby could go in undercover. Could you, though? I could pick out a few good marks and see what else I could find out while I was in there. I really don't think you should go picking out anything. Anyway, that's where these black market dealings are going to take place, is it? Yeah, it's gotta be. That's what the lower ranking detectives at the yard reckon. Says the even lower ranking detective.
Hold it!
So how would Inspector Gregson come to find out about it in that case? That's the question, ain't it? But I'm just an apprentice, so... Now why did he inform Scotland Yard of his findings? Because he didn't get any findings, he died! Yeah, that's what I was asking myself, because, you know, I'm just an apprentice. When it suits you, yes? Anyway, the point is... Something went on at that club, no question. You can't say that for certain, though, surely.
Hold it!
Lord Van Zieks was at the club? He was. Detectives who visited the club yesterday to make inquiries have confirmed it. Several members report having seen the accused being admitted to the room in question as a guest. Looks like there's no disputing that he was there, then. Well, we know that Lord Van Zieks was investigating Inspector Gregson, don't we? Perhaps he'd already discovered the Inspector's secret notebook. Which led him to the club, you mean? Maybe. Presumably, then, there are also eyewitnesses who can testify that Gregson was there? None have been identified at this time, no. So the all-important victim wasn't seen at this mysterious club. Oh, what ain't you asking Inspector Lestrade here, eh? So that's all I've got to work with. Gina's not holding back with the ice-cold stare of hers, is she? I really don't know what to make of all this. Lord Van Zieks told us that he was investigating Inspector Gregson, but he never once mentioned that he'd met the inspector the day before the incident. Because he didn't, because the inspector wasn't there. He just wrote that place in his meetings, he never made it. You don't think Lord Van Zieks could have been lying to you, do you? That's not the only way to explain this. Oh. If everything Lord Van Zieks has told us is true, then there must be a mistake in this testimony somewhere. You mean, there are details we've yet to uncover? Exactly. A clue, perhaps, that even Gina hasn't noticed. That's what we should be looking for here. Okay, is that in the court record? That notebook thing? No, it is not. So I think I want to show that Gregson wasn't really there. Huh. So the first one is all yard detectives are supposed to follow orders and investigate what they're told. We don't have anything that contradicts that, right? We don't say no, they're not. But a little search of the boss's office turned up a notebook that had loads of secret meetings in it. Okay, nothing... I believe there was a notebook with loads of secret meetings in it, right? So I don't see anything wrong with this. Apparently the smuggled goods deal was going to happen in a gentleman's club called The Grouse. Is the grouse mentioned on anything? Like in the evidence. I think it showed up in the story part, but it didn't end up in the evidence, did it? Looks like it was a big job and all, but the coppers weren't in on it yet. Huh. Red-headed League. Not really relevant, is it? Okay, Miko Toba's handwriting. Blackbird line. Dismissal notice. Nothing really to do with this testimony. That, no. No. Don't see anything here. No. Make sure this is all inspected again, but... Okay. Oh, my fingers like shifted off. Okay. Handprint. Firecrackers. Somewhat irrelevant. See how this would be relevant either. Identification. This picture. Isugi papers. Trunk. Let's have a look inside. Look, there's something inside. Oh, let's see. It appears to be a passport, authorizing him to travel overseas. Is Inspector Gregson about to go on a trip abroad, then? Perhaps the date of departure might tell us something. That was... Oh. What is it? It was for travel on the 31st of October, just one day before the incident. What, really? Gregson went to France the day before his body was discovered? Okay, so I present this on something, I presume. Wait. I added a thing. Date of departure is in 1 week from the 31st of October. Destination Port Dunkirk, France. Purpose of travel, police business. Permission for the applicant and one additional person to travel. You see that? There's something stuck on the side of the trunk here. It's glinting. Looks like a fragment of metal of some sort. But it's wedged in so tightly I can't remove it. Well, don't cut yourself. You better leave it, I think. Okay. I am, like, so perplexed by this. This is, like, not good. That's, like, so wrong. It's, like, not gonna work.
Objection!
Yeah, that's wrong. The grouse.
Objection!
That's also wrong. Great. Shane, this is... Like, the reason why I want to present on this one is that's the one you have to work to get on the screen, right? Someone's club called the Grouse. But... Is there a big refrigerator at the Grouse? I don't see that anywhere, like on any of these documents. No mention of the Grouse.
Objection!
Oh. Pain. Try pressing this one again.
Hold it!
That story had a false bottom. Huh. You know, I guess those were not Gregson's meetings. I'm gonna take a little break and come back to this. We kind of leave it sitting here on the screen. Okay, I just left it on the screen. I didn't flip through the screens because I didn't want to do anything on this off recording. I didn't really get any new ideas though. The only thing I thought of is maybe if there was something in the court record with Gregson's handwriting, it can be compared to the handwriting in the notebook. Reason why would Gregson's handwriting, like Gregson's stuff, why would the notebook not be written by Gregson? Well, it could be because Gina searched the wrong office. But this is not written by Gregson, so he might have signed it, that's about it. Yeah, the big thing that's really bothering me is this is the thing you have to have in the this thing you have to work to get into the cross-examination, right? And so it makes it highly likely that you would think this is the thing you present on, right? Is that it happened at a gentleman's club called the Grouse. The problem is there's nothing that says anything about when the meeting is going to happen, where the meeting is going to happen in the court record. This doesn't. This, no. Autopsy report does not say anything about the grouse. Nothing about the grouse in the notebook. Nothing about the grouse in the Asogi papers. Nothing about the grouse in this photograph. Nothing about the grouse in the identification. Nothing about the grouse in the. Nothing about the grouse here. Not here. Not here. Nothing here. This is the autopsy report. The grouse isn't in the background of this picture, as far as I can tell. Like, it has nothing to do with absolutely any of these things. Alright, the grouse isn't mentioned in here. Right, because of that, like, I don't have anything to present on this. Why did that do as autosave? So, like, There's nothing I can present on this. This must be the thing, not the thing I'm supposed to present on, despite me being able to add it to the courtroom, add it to the testimony, which is really tricky. Then they go, okay, what if that wasn't really the boss's office? Well, I already tried presenting this on this one, and it didn't work. You could argue, why wasn't it in the trunk? Huh. The coppers weren't onto it yet. Using this evidence that they would know about this job. They don't have anything about whether Van Sykes was there, though. So they didn't see the Reaper, they saw Clint. Where'd you find the trunk?
Objection!
That's clearly wrong. I'm so stumped I have to brute force this again. It's the first cross-examination of every case that gets me. I don't know. It's just... why? I'm going to slap my face in the slap myself in the face so hard once I figure this out. I'm gonna be like, why didn't you get that? It's gonna be so obvious in retrospect. Okay then. I'm going to go through the rest of this whole trial segment with one life. Such is my life. At least it's realistic, I suppose. So I don't want to to overwrite that one. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna overwrite this. Present everything I can on this, going from left to right. So I already presented that. This one, I don't care about this. Clint's autopsy report, why not? Okay.
Objection!
I already tried the trunk. Phooey. I was redundant there.
Objection!
I don't know what to say about this. Like, I literally have no idea. Like, I don't even have an idea what the plot's gonna go after this.
Objection!
I don't know if I've done the identification card, but this was a little bit less absurd than, say, the Asogi papers.
Objection!
Okay, the watch.
Objection!
So I just presented the watch, didn't I? So next we have the picture.
Objection!
Well, that's wrong.
Objection!
These are all absurd. This is really the most likely statement, that's why I'm presenting on this one. But it's just...
Objection! Objection! Objection!
What would this have anything to do with anything?
Objection!
Yeah, it's like I can't care whether or not it makes any sense to present that, because the stuff that made sense didn't work. Actually, nothing makes sense. But the stuff that made the least no sense didn't work. So I was going for yeah, so you're like, why would you present that? That's absurd.
Objection!
Because the right answer has to be absurd. I can't keep track of this if I don't do it systematically.
Objection! Objection!
Yeah, it would be ideal if I had some, like, topic of conversation to start ranting about. But, like, I don't have one. So, I just can't think about anything right now. So as a result, it's just silence and trying out possible combinations.
Objection! Objection! Objection!
How? That's a ship ticket. I've read all about these clubs that exist here in Britain. As I understand it, they are places where well-to-do gentlemen socialize with friends and colleagues. I don't imagine for a second that a foreign student like you would be admitted. Seriously, is your mirror cracked or something? Do you know for sure that the contraband dealings were definitely happening at a club called The Grouse? The police are currently looking for evidence, but haven't found anything definitive yet. And I'm sorry to say that they probably won't. What do you mean by that? I mean that the place Inspector Gregson was secretly going to visit on 31st of October may not have been a gentleman's club at all. Oh. I am stupid. I am so stupid. Oh, that was painful. Oh, why'd I have to do that? It's right there. Philly! I had no memory of the name of the steamship. And so I didn't think it would be, like, I completely slipped to my mind. It went in my eyes and went out my ears. Anyway. You're showing a very irreverent attitude towards our country's police force here, Counsel. If it wasn't a gentleman's club, then what was it? A steamship. You think it's a ship? I have the evidence to prove it. Here. Let me see that. This dark-suited young man is not in the least bit untrustworthy. The other side, my lord. Be more specific next time. Oh, this would appear to be a ticket for passage upon a steamship, yes? The SS Grouse.
Objection!
So there's a steamship named the Grouse that happened to share a name with the club. But I'm afraid to say, there's a flaw in your logic here. How? Look at the ticket. Notice the date of arrival at port. The ship arrived at Port of Dover on the 1st of November. Ah, the day on which the sound like a gunshot was heard on Fresno Street. In other words, on the day in question here, 31st of October, when the victim was on his clandestine mission. The ship hadn't yet docked on British shores. That would certainly make an undercover investigation somewhat challenging.
Objection!
The fact that the steamship hadn't reached Britain substantiates the defense's assertion that the victim was investigating the SS Grouse on the day in question. Then show your evidence for that assertion. Very well. In that case, counsel for the defense, present your evidence to the court now. Evidence that substantiates your claim that the victim was investigating the SS Grouse on the 31st of October. Well, since I whittled myself down to one life, I have to save now. Because I didn't remember this name of the steamship. I didn't even take it. I didn't even, like, note, like, think of it to be any note. Like, anything of importance.
Take that!
What's this? A passport for travel issued to the victim? Dated 31st of October. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that just one day before the inspector's body was discovered, there's a distinct possibility he wasn't even in the country. Order! This document is for passage to France. It does appear to have been officially authorized. The day before the SS Grouse arrived at Dover, it docked on the northern coast of France for a night. According to my father, who was on board, at the port of Dunkirk. Dunkirk, France. What could possibly have taken the victim there? Ha 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 ha. I'm impressed, Ryanosuke Naruhodo. I certainly didn't expect you to get your hands on that passport. What? You mean you knew about this? The prosecution strategy for this trial has been laid down by the Crown Prosecution Office. On the day before the incident, the victim was investigating contraband dealings at a London club. That's the outcome of Scotland Yard's investigations and the line the prosecution has been asked to follow. But personally, I don't agree. I think the prosecutor's office is trying to hide something. What? And now that you've expertly disproven their assertion, I intend to reveal what I believe that's something to be. What are you playing at, Prosecutor Asogi? A courtroom is formed for the truth, my lord. Which is why it's my duty to present all the facts, without exception. Let me guess. This was your intention from the outset, wasn't it? The reason Inspector Gregson secretly made his way to the steamship docked in France on the day in question was to carry out a mission for the Reaper. The Reaper? Order! What on earth are you saying, counsel? The prosecution made an assertion in court yesterday. Inspector Gregson was investigating the identity of the Reaper. When he discovered the location of the man's secret hideout, he was killed. As I'm sure everyone can imagine. By the Reaper's hand. But in reality, the truth is the opposite of that. What? Inspector Gregson wasn't investigating the Reaper at all. He was, in fact, acting for the Reaper. So you're saying the mission he was undertaking was, obviously, an assassination. Barak Van Zieks never carried out any of the actual killings. Whenever the Reaper's victims lost their lives, he always had a cast iron alibi. Which tells us that he must have had an accomplice. And you claim that that was Inspector Gregson? What the hell do you think you're saying, eh? My boss would never have done nothing like that. And yet, when you consider all the facts, it all makes perfect sense. No, it can't be. We also arrived at the same conclusion, didn't we? That Inspector Gregson was operating as the Reaper. Even so, there's no way that the person giving him his orders was Lord Van Zieks. No, the true Reaper is somebody else. Barak Van Zieks is not the Reaper. A predictable response from someone who's advocating for the man. And even if it's true that Gregson was operating as an agent of the Reaper, the suggestion that he went aboard the SS Grouse on an assassination mission doesn't follow at all. Oh, you have some solid reason for doubting the assertion, do you, Counsel? Absolutely. It's very simple. On the day in question, nobody was killed aboard that steamship. Professor Mikotoba and Judge Jigoku were on that very ship. If someone had been assassinated, I'm certain we would have heard about it. Poofed! What's so funny? You're right, of course. No suspicious deaths were reported on board the ship. But I think perhaps you've missed the point. That's precisely why Inspector Gregson himself lost his life. What? Gregson did board the SS Grouse that night with the intention of dispatching his mark. But his mission ended in failure. Failure? It seems that the defense hasn't yet grasped a very important detail here. What are you talking about? That Gregson died? Inspector Gina Lestrade. What? The victim's notebook that you read an excerpt from earlier, that doesn't contain details of secret investigations at all. It describes 10 years of assassination plots to be carried out by the Reaper of the Bailey. You're lying. Even if all them budgers got what's taken out at it coming. The boss weren't the Reaper. Corgina. There's no reason that Tobias Gregson was heavily involved in the Reaper's activities. You may just be an apprentice, but if you spent any time in Scotland Yard, you must have heard rumors. Nothing. And I don't believe a word of it. And testify again, as a representative of Scotland Yard. Consider it your chance to defend your boss. I don't. I concur. The witness will give a new formal testimony. Miss Lestrade, you will tell the court everything you know about Inspector Gregson's secret notebook. Yeah, this notebook does have a load of stuff about what the Reaper got up to these past 10 years. Names of victims, dates, places, and stuff. The last entry in there was 31st of October. It said Grouse for the place on that date, and then the name of the mark. There was a notebook about him being a criminal who got away from the Reaper in court 10 years ago, or some at. But honest, the boss didn't do none of it. He was just investigating the Reaper, that's all. Keep personal opinion out of your testimony, witness. We require only established fact here. This must be so hard for her. You can't deny it now, surely, Rinosuke Naruhodo. What can't I deny? The notebook contains the name of the final mark, and the location where the assassination would take place. That information that the victim could only have known if he was working with the Reaper. Ah. So, who was to be this final mark? Go ahead, Inspector Lestrade, read the name for the court. The name that's written alongside the entry that mentions the grouse on 31st of October. So it's either Miko Toba or Jigoku. "50-50 shot at this. I know Jigoku stood trial, but he stood trial for breaking a lectern. And was found not guilty, even though he totally did do it. That made no sense. Or I don't know, maybe he was found guilty and the punishment wasn't that bad. I wouldn't know about Miko Toba, though. But there's gotta be a reason why Jigoku's here. That makes me think Jigoku. How would you read this then? A reason why he's here, like, in the meta sense. I don't know what the plot reason is yet. There might not be a plot reason at all. Raiden's still not a strong suit. That ain't the problem, alright, Odo? It's a funny name. It ain't English. And it's hard to read. So it's someone from overseas. Let me have a bash at it. Seishiro. Yep, Jigoku. Okay. Well, I can 50-50 it. Yeah, Seishiro. Jigoku. Maybe? It's funny that, like, they made the ku into a U. Yeah, in the Japanese, they would have had it in, like, one hiragana or katakana or something at a time. It would be really goofy. They would have romanized it. What? It can't be. Or kanji, because names tend to be written with them. Say Shiro Jigoku. But that's Judge Jigoku. Say Shiro Jigoku. Certainly not an English name, you're right. But that can't be right. I know Judge Jigoku, and I saw him the day before yesterday here in London. Right. The assassination attempt has failed. Sorry. So I know for a fact the man hasn't been assassinated. Which is exactly the point! As I said, the Reaper failed. Oh. Gregson missed his chance to kill his mark and returned to British shores. But the Reaper wouldn't tolerate the mistake, so he killed the inspector personally. The Reaper, of course, being the accused, Barak von Zeeks. It's an undeniably logical argument. Kazuma, you planned for the trial to go this way all along, didn't you? Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hollow chalice whilst I stand accused of murder. Lord Van Zeeks. The accused has no right to speak uninvited in court. You will return to the dock. I say nothing of whether or not I'm the Reaper. That's the task of this court to decide. But there is one thing I can say unequivocally. The girl is no detective. What? No, that's right, I ain't. I'm an inspector. Repeating rumors heard around the yard. Repeating entries from a notebook of unconfirmed origin. That's not testimony. It's practically a script. No doubt the rest of the trial will go exactly as you clearly planned. Your hatred of me is understandable. In your mind, I'm sure I am the Reaper, who sent your father to the gallows all those years ago. But you're in danger of becoming a far more sinister Reaper yourself, by attempting to have me condemned with this feeble excuse for testimony. What did you say? Mr. Naruhodo, this is our chance. My lord, the defense requests the defendant be allowed to speak. He may be privy to important information relating to the testimony just given by the witness. Very well, I'll make an exception and grant the request. The defendant may remain in the witness stand for the cross-examination. Then allow me to toast the court's impartiality. Don't raise your glass in my direction, sir. Counsel for the defense, begin the cross-examination immediately. At once, my lord. Press this.
Hold it!
In other words, it shows that Gregson was basically acting as the Reaper. Not you and all. That ain't the only explanation, is it? They could have been investigating the Reaper in secret, and that notebook would have what he found out. If I may. When originally people began referring to me as the Reaper, I didn't object. I believe the power of to intimidate London's criminals classes into compliance with the law to be beneficial. But you carried out your own investigations into the true identity of the Reaper, didn't you? Yes, and those investigations proved conclusively that Gregson was one arm of the Reaper. One arm? What are you on about? The Reaper's victims were all extremely shrewd criminals at the top of their game. There's simply no way one person could have taken them on alone. The Reaper is an organization. With you, I'd said, I had spies at the yard keeping me abreast of Gregson's movements, letting me know when he was elsewhere. So I'd been able to check the most recent entry in this book. I knew the location. You knew it said Grouse? Believing it to be a reference to the Gentleman's Club, I went there on the day in question to investigate, alone. Ah, so that explains why several members of the club claimed to have seen you there. But of course, the inspector was not there. Because at the time, he was making his way to the steamship docked on the northern coast of France, as shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk. How do you know it was in the trunk? Very well then, back to your testimony about the contents of this notebook. Fine. Something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? You seemed a little shocked by something a moment ago. Oh, no, it's alright. I'm overthinking this, aren't I? So we present on the first statement. Passport was found in the trunk. Names of the victims, dates and places and stuff, and the last entry was 31st of October. Names of victims, dates, places, and stuff? What in particular? Well, besides the victims' names, this other name kept cropping up. What other name was that? It's the one I told you yesterday. The same name, written over and over again. Asa Shin, right? You mean Asa Shin. Yep, that's the one. She's a friend of yours, our Samat, isn't she? Were you even listening yesterday? Asa Shin. The assassin. What? Like, a killer, you mean? Gregson was the tactician, the one who came up with the plan of attack. He investigated the marks thoroughly, finding out when they would be vulnerable and who to use to get at them. But the person actually executing his plans was someone else, you're saying? If that's true, then the Reaper does indeed start to sound like an organized group of vigilantes. Then perhaps what it said on the passport document, permission for the applicant and one additional person to travel, could that additional person have been clearly the assassin who was meant to take Shishiro Jigoku's life? But it wasn't Shin because she's dead. Gina, can you confirm that against the final entry that listed Grouse as Shishiro Jigoku? What name was written? It wasn't Shin. It couldn't have been Shin. Oh well, that's the only entry that didn't have a name next to it, as it happens. What? It just had like a question mark or some out there, I think. In other words, Gregson himself didn't know the identity of the assassin in that case. But Gregson was the one making the plans, was he not? Oh, how infuriating. A nameless assassin.
Hold it!
And you're saying that the mark listed was Shishiro Jigoku. That's what it said. Funny name, if you ask me. And I thought your name was odd. It's less odd than Shishiro Jigoku, actually. I'm pleased to have lost my crown. There. Mr. Jigoku is the presiding judge of Japan's Supreme Court of Judicature. I remember the name. He came to our country as a visiting student 16 years ago, studying international law and diplomacy under your tutelage, Lord Strongheart. That bearded young fellow was a very able man, I must say. So Lord Strongheart was Judge Jigoku's mentor. If I'm not mistaken, he returned to Japan 10 years ago now. 10 years ago, after that fateful case. Precisely. In the aftermath of the Professor case, his repatriation was organized immediately. It's a mystery why such a man would be listed in the inspector's notebook. I didn't think it was possible, but the mood in here got even worse now. Maybe I'll just keep talking.
Hold it!
What do you mean a criminal? Judge Jigoku is no criminal! Well, don't ask me. I don't know nothing about it. Oh, do you remember what Father told us? The Judge Jigoku did once appear in court here in Britain. It's related to the Professor case, I'm sure. Yes, of course, you're right. Shishiro was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took to the stand to testify. But he got a little carried away and, actually managed to break the witness stand. He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire, for which he was charged. Oh, so just words. It was a pitiful situation, yes. I'd forgotten all about it, but I prosecuted that trial too, as it happens. You did? It was considered to be an adjunct to the professor proceedings, you see. But he was acquitted after being told to make reparations for the damage caused to the stand. And there you have it. Have what? Surely the accused hasn't forgotten his own rule. That there's no saving anyone who faces the Reaper in court, guilty or innocent alike. What? No. Are you suggesting that the reason Judge Jigoku was targeted for assassination? The man was sent back to Japan immediately after that trial. The Reaper had no time to do his work. But then, 10 years later, the mark returned to Britain once more. Perhaps, no, now you start to see just how vindictive the Reaper is. Come on, that's absurd. To take someone's life for that. Isn't that the whole premise of the Reaper? Isn't the whole premise of the Reaper absurd? Killing those who have been found innocent. Clearly, the rules by which the man operates are beyond the sane person's comprehension. But they weren't innocent. They were just found innocent. Right, I've had just about enough of this. Gina? At this nonsense about the boss planning to kill people, it's cobblers. Okay, cobbler's foot, cobbler's heel. I don't know what a cobbler uses. Cobbler's glue? Come on, Odo. Yes? Why ain't you saying nothing? Why ain't you yelling out objection or somewhat? What? You've gotta find a flaw, you do usually. Someone's lying here, no question. You gotta work out who it is. Please, for the boss. Because Naruhodo thinks that Gregson was the Reaper, was doing these things. That outburst was an insult to the court and your own testimony. I might have known that a common pickpocket friend of Backsum's couldn't make a detective. Then when this trial is over, you will forfeit your warrant card, Miss Lestrade. Is that clear? I've had it with a lot of you. It's lies every bleeding place. You look in this world, innit? Well, I've had enough. Gina? So have I. After that little speech of Gina's, I've made up my mind. To do what, Mr. Naruhodo? There is one point in this cross-examination when something that was said just didn't sit right with me. One statement that seemed odd. Oh, do you mean... I'm not going to let Gina's plea for help fall on deaf ears.
Hold it!
I want to thank you, Gina. You helped me find my resolve. Eh? What do you mean? Amongst everything we've heard during this cross-examination, there's one thing that defies explanation. One inconsistency. What? An inconsistency? Really, Odo? I don't quite know what it means yet, but... yes, there's an inconsistency in something that was said by... oops. This is the inconvenience of being at 1 health. Okay. There's only 3 people who could have said something inconsistent. Actually, it's 4. This guy, this girl, this guy, and this guy. I forgot what they all said, though. Try it. Of course, by you, Lord Benzeeks. Me what? Your face is turned ashen. How could he know? Is that what you're thinking? And if my face is turned ashen, it's because I'm thinking, how could he? This sounds like a fail. I don't know where you're going with this, but... maybe the evidence you're obviously about to show the court will clarify. In that case, the defense will present evidence to substantiate its claim. To which piece of evidence does this alleged inconsistency relate? Wait, I have to double do it? That sounded like I got it wrong. But it may not tell me I got it wrong until, like, after the evidence. Which creates this problem where I have to save, like, a second at a different slot. So I'll save in slot 2 here. Which probably overwrote the slot the save I was trying to save. Which is very unfortunate, but whatever. Probably just goofed up. What?
Take that!
I hope not to have to present this evidence, but you leave me no choice. What do I have to say to this, Lord Van Lakes? Your feelings were correct. Presenting that evidence was a mistake. I suggest you withdraw it. Sorry? Good advice. Because you have turned decidedly ashen. I only hope the Reaper doesn't hold that against you. Fingers crossed. I think this line of argument has run its course. I suggest you learn from your mistakes before you make a fatal one in the eyes of the Reaper. It may help that Lord Van Zeeks is in the stand, too. Yes, perhaps. I'm sure Gina knows nothing she hasn't already told us. There's no point in trying to get more out of her. Did you notice how Kazuma-sama reacted to Lord Van Zeeks' words? When he called him an even more sinister Reaper, you mean? Well, I'm sure Kazuma intends to eliminate any shred of doubt that the man is guilty. He's looking for revenge against the person he considers to be his father's killer, after all. I do wonder, what if we fail to find a discrepancy in this testimony somewhere? The trial may end, and adjudication will go in our favor. Let's listen carefully again to what everybody is saying. Okay. Yeah, it was the first one. If we press the first one again.
Hold it!
In other words, it shows that Gregson was basically acting as the Reaper. No, you at all. That ain't the only explanation, is it? He could have been investigating the Reaper in secret, and that notebook said what he found out. If I may. When originally people began referring to me as the Reaper, I didn't object. I believe the power to intimidate London's criminals classes into compliance with the law to be beneficial. But you carried out your own investigations into the true identity of the Reaper, didn't you? Yes, and those investigations proved conclusively that Gregson was one arm of the Reaper. One arm. The Reaper's victims were all extremely shrewd criminals at the top of their game. There's simply no way one person could have taken them on alone. The Reaper is an organization. With you at its head, I had spies at the yard keeping me abreast of Gregson's movements, letting me know when he was elsewhere. So I'd been able to check the most recent entry in this book. I knew the location. You knew it said Grouse. Believing it to be a reference to the Gentleman's Club, I went there on the day in question to investigate alone. Ah, so that explains why several members of the club claimed to have seen you there. But, of course, the inspector was not there, because at the time he was making his way to the steamship docked on the northern coast of France, as shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk. Yeah, that's a weird one. Port of Dunkirk. Police business. Huh. Why would he disguise it? Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, let's try that.
Hold it!
Okay, so Kazuma.
Take that!
Oh, the music stopped on it. By you, Kazuma Sogi. Me? Okay, so we know that Kazuma's correct. Is this one attempt at filibustering, Counsel? Prosecutor Asogi has given no testimony. What are you suggesting I said that was inconsistent? You let something slip that you shouldn't have. When I presented the relevant piece of evidence, I imagine you'll realize what you've done. Very well then, Counsel, go ahead. What evidence reveals this alleged inconsistency in something Prosecutor Asogi has said? Okay. Well, this is kind of lame, but I would go just with this.
Take that!
That seems wrong. The music didn't stop. So, my initial impressions were correct. This is nonsense. Well, okay. It's pretty aggressive. Red-Headed League article. Not a good choice. Photograph of Mr. Vigil. Dunkirk on the north coast of France for a night before finally arriving in Dover.
Take that!
So not this, right?
Take that!
Okay. Still is in the trunk, is that what you're saying?
Take that!
Okay, so the trunk. I don't get why, though. This is a trunk that belonged to Inspector Gregson. A metal construction, is it? It's certainly very heavy. What's this? A bloodstain, and a relatively fresh one, too. What, you mean that ain't grease from all the boss's fists and chips? Fresh blood on the inspector's trunk. That suggests that the victim was traveling with that luggage when he was killed. That can't be. There was no mention of any trunk in Scotland Yard's report. Yes, there's a reason for that. Immediately after the inspector's body was discovered, one of the street peddlers made off with the trunk, hoping to sell it. But I found it, with me nose for trouble. Humph. Which means that nobody should have known anything about the trunk. Unless, of course, we're talking about somebody who was present when the victim was killed. And yet, during the cross-examination of the witness just now, you said this, Kazuma. Because at the time he was making his way to the steamship docked on the northern coast of France, as shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk. Okay, that's ridiculously... That's ridiculous. How are you supposed to pick up on that? I mean... You would think that he would know what all the evidence was, because he's the prosecutor. So the question is, how did you know about the inspector's trunk? This is ridiculous. We know the man went on a trip to France. Where else would he have put his passport? But you knew it was a metal trunk. Answer me honestly, Kazuma. On the 31st of October, where exactly were you? At the port of Dunkirk, on board the SS Grouse. Is that the answer you're looking for, Ryanosuke? Kazuma, is that true? I hadn't considered the possibility before, but if Kazuma was there on the ship, then it can only have been for one purpose. He's the +1. Oh no, Mr. Naruhodo, surely you don't think... Ha 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 ha. Come on, Ryanosuke, you know the rules. The only thing that really talks in the courtroom is hard evidence. As I understand it, Inspector Gregson always took that case with him when he traveled. So as it stands, you've proven nothing. Kazuma? Are you challenging me to prove it, beyond all reasonable doubt? That you were there that day, in the same place as the inspector? He was there with Gregson? There's a clue that you overlooked, a secret that Trunk can tell us. Can't be sure at this point, I'll need to verify it. But I have a nasty feeling that I'm going to be right. The accusation being made is deeply disturbing, but nevertheless we must test it. The defense will identify to the court where in the trunk this alleged clue will be found. Oh no, not the sword tip. I'm not gonna save for this one, I'm just gonna go for it.
Got it!
This is your proof? What do you say to that, Prosecutor Asogi? Personally, I think trying the defense counsel to the inspector's trunk. Oh. What? Well. Oh, you have to open the lid, don't you? Really? They make me open the lid? Let's present the trunk again.
Take that! protection.
I suppose I'll save, just in case. And this is what we present. Wait, it's still, like, examinable. Oh.
Got
You
it.
have to open the lid first. I hate it when it does. It's like, come on, really? I know the answer if I choose there. There's a small piece of metal logged in the wall of the trunk here. Look at the tip. Looks like the tip of a blade. Yeah, a blade. Kazuma, slung around your waist is, as ever today, is the esteemed blade Karuma. Of course it is. Won't you draw it? Here in this courtroom? For all to see? Exercise caution, my learned friend. That man is the son of London's most notorious killer. Bailiff, watch Prosecutor Asogi like a hawk. That won't be necessary. It's the wrong blade. Oh no. The tip is broken. If the fragment of metal from the trunk fits together with the end of the sword, the question of who was there with Inspector Gregson will be answered. Agreed, Kazuma Asogi? Expertly done, Rinosuke. That's a point to you, and well deserved. Do you mean to tell the court, Prosecutor Asogi? Yes, on the 31st of October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. So the additional person authorized to travel was me. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. What? You mean you're the killer whose name was omitted from this notebook? You're following the Reaper's orders to dispatch Judge Jigoku. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. I have killed no one. Explain. I accepted the assassination mission, yes, and I accompanied Gregson to Dunkirk, but I've never had any intention of carrying out the plan. You are never going to do it. We can believe Kazuma-sama, I'm sure. After all, Judge Shigoku arrived safely in London the following day. On the 31st, I boarded a train from London with Inspector Gregson. It's kind of a complicated plot by Kazuma to claim to be an insider so he can so he can name the boss. Anyway, we traveled to Dover from where we crossed the channel to Dunkirk. When we boarded the SS Grouse, we made for the cabin deck, as indicated by the plan. You went to Judge Jigoku's cabin? Exactly. He wasn't there, though. We decided to wait, but you've already told us you had no intention of going through with it anyway. I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life. So I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night on a boarding house in town and returned to England the following morning. How does that explain the tip of your sword, though? A boarding house in Dunkirk? My signature will be in the register book. It would be simple enough to verify. Then what became of Jigoku? Gregson was no assassin, so the mark was spared. I'm sure it's easy enough to imagine what happened after that. Gregson returned to England as well, having failed to complete the mission. He met with the Reaper in that room on Fresno Street to report the failure, causing the infuriated mastermind to pull the trigger and end his wretched agent's life. That's the real truth behind Inspector Gregson's murder. But if you did nothing as you claim, how did the tip of your sword come to be lodged in the inspector's trunk? I don't need to answer that. The victim was killed by a gunshot. A small fragment of a Japanese blade isn't relevant to the case. And accordingly, I choose to exercise my right to silence on that matter. Be that as it may, the court will sequester the sword as evidence. As you wish, my lord. You must take immediate action now. I inspect this, by golly. Karuma, the great blade. It's such a thing of beauty I want to gaze on it for hours. Tip of the great sword. Broken. Such a shame, it's been so meticulously cared for over the years. Can almost hear Karuma's sobs. Kazuma must have really taken a swing for that to happen. That's it? Huh. To verify whether Seishiro Jigoku remains unharmed. What? Remains unharmed? I agree. That should be our first priority. It's recently come to my attention that he hasn't been seen since yesterday. How did you... When a foreign dignitary invited to Great Britain goes missing for 24 hours, it's only natural that the question of his safety should arise. You don't mean to say that you think Judge Jigoku may have been killed? The Reaper has more than one assassin at his disposal, and he has the power and influence to give orders from the inside of a prison cell. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zieks? If I were truly the Reaper, I'd be able to tell you. Order in the court, order. We will take an emergency recess for 30 minutes. How? Now? Guests of the symposium may have been told to maintain regular contact with the organizer's office. If the man can't be located within half an hour, we'll have to assume the worst. Oh no, not Judge Jigoku. No one would want to kill a harmless Japanese man who'd only just arrived in the country. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call Jigoku harmless. Except that is, for the Reaper, wanting to finish off a mark that slipped through the net 10 years ago. I would have to agree. Mr. Naruhodo, for the defense's sake. My lord, I sincerely hope we are successful. If we're unable to confirm Mr. Jigoku's healthy existence in the next 30 minutes, you will face grave difficulties. Court is adjourned for 30 minutes. Zuma-sama, the Reaper's assassin. I feel as though I'm in a nightmare. I can hardly believe it either, but on the other hand, Kazuma isn't in the habit of making up stories. I have such a terrible sense of foreboding. If something awful has happened to Judge Jigoku, then I feel as though things will only spiral further and further out of control. I felt it from the moment I stepped into the courthouse this morning, that strange sensation that we were careering towards a foregone conclusion. Well, in the worst case, we might only have 30 minutes left. Unfortunately, though, I don't think there's anything we can do but wait now. We're out of options. Actually, there may be one last hand we can play. Or rather, one last year. Of course, the little Mr. Sholmes doll that Iris gave us. It's time to execute Mr. Sholmes by a weird type of drawing and quartering that involves the ears. Perhaps now is the time. What should I do? Pull Hurley's ears? Leave it. This is one of Iris's inventions. There's no telling what might happen. For all I know, it could cause a huge explosion. I'm not sure you should be thinking like that, Mr. Naruhodo. Compared to the trial endings immediately after this recess, a huge explosion might be preferable. I'm not sure you should be thinking like that, Miss Susato. But I suppose you're right. If there was ever a time for taking a risk, it's now. Here goes then. I'm going to do it. Good luck, Mr. Naruhodo. No looking back. Heave! Ow! That scream sounded like Mr. Sholmes. It's an actual voodoo doll that works. It just summons Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, where are you? Here, my dear fellow, here. It's the felt doll talking. Pull the ears again, Mr. Naruhodo, as hard as you can. Alright then, I'll pull with all my strength into it. Heave. Ow! Please, my dear fellows, you don't need to pull my ear off. Mr. Sholmes, where are you? Myself and my trusty partner are presently at the first-class cabin area of the SS Grouse. The SS Grouse? We left over last night after the final pieces of cargo were loaded. We are currently docked at Dunkirk, but due to be underway again in half an hour. You have taken a ship to France. Please, even with my athletic prowess, I would struggle to jump the Straits of Dover. After we left Baker Street last night, we hurried by cab to the station and by train to the port, in order to board this vessel in time. So you mean you've already worked it out, that the steamship was where everything really took place? Mr. Naruhodo, pray, what is my name? Herlock Sholmes, the world-famous great detective. Recited to perfection, well done. You're a genius, Mr. Sholmes, that's the only word for it. Ow. Miss Susato, gentle with a genius's ear, please. Oh my. I am so sorry. If I may, Sholmes. There you are, Mikotoba. You may remember that it was, in fact, I who made the connection to the SS Grouse. At Scotland Yard yesterday, when we examined that notebook and recalled my steamship ticket. Ha 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 ha. But of course it was, my dear fellow. And not once did I controvert that fact. I merely had our court-bound companions utter my name. Yes, you did, didn't you? We've just entered a recess. The trial resumes 30 minutes from now. And if we're unable to present any new leads, then I'm afraid to say... Do not fret, please. It's for precisely that purpose that my partner and I have made this journey. I have no doubt we shall have welcome news for you within the half hour. Thank you, Mr. Sholmes. That would be wonderful. Until later, then. Yes, you'll be hearing from us if you're not you're not in touch first. Ow! I shan't be hearing anything if you keep tugging my ear in that mindless fashion. Whatever was the idea behind making a receiver operate in that way in the first place, Sholmes? Why, the deuce would I know? It's Iris's invention, not mine. Whilst I know how much you enjoy being the hero of the hour, Sholmes, we have but half that now before the grouse puts to sea again. If we don't conclude our investigation rapidly, we shall find ourselves in Naples before long. There are times, Mikotoba, when you make a surprising amount of sense. So, let us begin. It's beef stroganoff. First class cabin number 2. Yes, this is the one. Why is it an exact copy of the Beria? But I don't believe an investigation of the cabin is going to be plain sailing. It's kind of like the Titanic and the Britannic, right? And the third one. There are 3. Anyway. That crewman standing in front of the door is an angry-looking fellow. Why are you loitering here? Who are you? My dear fellow, do you not recognize a world-famous great detective when you see one? The question really ought to be, who are you? Do you not recognize world-traveling great sailor Chicken Stroganoff when you see it? Oh. Great detective? Haha, I don't think so. Do you see that, Mikotoba? It would appear that this man is a devoted follower of mine. Goodness me, is that a tattoo? It says Sholmes. I must say, whilst such adoration is flattering, naturally, it does leave me a little cold. What are you talking about? Leave now. How distressing, my little devotee knows me only by my name and not by appearance. And yet I already know a great deal about you, sir. You have a brother, I believe. Like yourself, he's a shipman. Currently traveling the world aboard a Russian steamship, in fact. How could you know this? Elementary, my dear Mikotoba. He didn't say that, though. That's that's like, Luke, I am your father, or beam me up, Scotty. Nowhere in Sherlock Holmes does it say, elementary, my dear Watson. Word for word. Anyway, I'm sure it was. 3 days ago, I was bound for London aboard the ship, you see. We're looking for one of my fellow passengers, and then a man by the name of Jigoku. There was no one with this name on board, but we know that he purchased a ticket for passage. Ah, you mean Eastern man. He left ship 2 hours ago. Here in Dunkirk, he said something about an emergency, I think. What, are you sure? So Sashiro realized that we're after him, has he? His cabin is the one behind you. We should like to investigate, please. No, I have orders not to let even mouse inside. Mikotoba, be a good man and draw this sailor's attention away, would you? Make up some excuse so that he leaves the area. Doesn't great detective see that even sailors have ears, both left and right? Curses, the plan is ruined. And you have only yourself to blame, I'm afraid, Sholmes. Forget it. Cabin door is locked. Even if I am not here, you cannot get inside. Mikotoba, I'm sure you haven't forgotten my special talent, have you? Opening any lock? Within a mere 5 seconds. So if you'd be kind as to afford me the requisite time, old friend, if you typically accommodate in your typically accommodating manner. How could I refuse such a typically unappealing request, old friend? So I need to distract the burly sailor for 5 seconds, do I? Good man. So, the game is afoot. Time to ring the bell. This would appear to be an alarm bell. All hell would break loose if that thing were to ring. The whole crew would know about it. Here it goes then. Pardon me in advance. What are you doing? If we were at sea, this would be a very bad problem. What's going on down there? Seaman Stroganoff, report at once. Sorry, sir, nothing to report. It was a stupid trick. No, not by me. By world famous, no, as I told you. Now, Schultz, now. Done. Not even 5 seconds, eh? Well, don't stand here gawping at my brilliance, Mikotoba, in we go. Oh, yes. I forgot what the picture is supposed to be of. Good gracious. It would appear that the occupant of this cabin did indeed disembark rather hurriedly. There's clothes on the floor there. There's Seishiro's without question. Well, it seems we are just a little too late. Yes, by about 2 hours. Still, whilst we're here, we should investigate thoroughly. There may well be 2 hours worth of clues to find in here. That burly crewman may remember at any moment, Sholmes. Indeed he may. Which makes it all the more thrilling. According to the report I was given, Naruhodo was concealing himself in Asogi's wardrobe. Indeed he was, and it was a similar size to this one. Ah, you must climb inside yourself, my dear fellow. What? Whatever for? It was the site of my first fateful meeting with Mr. Naruhodo. You can experience the moment for yourself now, complete with dramatic rhetoric. Come along now, in you go. This will only take a moment. Really, Sholmes, surely you can just tell me what you said. Well, I had some brilliant remark and opened the wardrobe to reveal the stowaway murderer. I think I'll just read about it in The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes. There's a speaking tube here, look. Though it's been stoppered with some cloth. So the voices of the crewmen on the bridge aren't an annoyance, I suppose. Or indeed, so that the voices of this cabin aren't heard elsewhere. Could something have happened in here that was for no one else's ears, do you think? Either that, or it could be to prevent snakes from entering. That's really become a favorite case of yours, hasn't it? Quite the exquisite glass, I must say. See here how it... Is there something wrong, Sholmes? You suddenly trailed off. Ice, Mikotoba. Ice. One opulence the first-class passengers enjoy. Chilled drinks. Pardon? Could it be that the steamship is equipped with an electrically refrigerated cold room, do you think? Well, it is a luxury diner after all. Luxury liner. They have enormous refrigerators for storing all sorts of lavish produce as well as ice. On our voyage in Japan, we enjoy culinary delights from all over the world. Suddenly, Mikotoba. The sight of you is making my mouth water. I haven't taken on the flavor of the food I eat, you know? Well, that's important. This is the waste paper basket, look, and there's still rubbish inside. Indeed. Then let us pry. I've discovered recently I have a penance for exploring the contents of others' waste paper baskets. I sincerely hope only for your work. Ah. Here we have a notice issued to passengers from the 3 days ago. 3 days ago? The night before we arrived in London, then. When I was still aboard myself. Following departure from the port of Dunkirk, yes, there was an evacuation drill, I remember now. For our safety and security, all first-class passengers were constantly under the watchful eye of the crew. So it was a welcome relief to have some privacy for once. Oh, I can't look at the court record? Great. That's a substantial heap of clothes on the floor. An overcoat, shirts, and dressing gown. Momohiki works trousers, a Tenzin robe, a haramaki waistband, clearly the clothes of a Japanese man. And clearly Japanese men are unaccustomed to the culture of the wardrobe. It looks to me as if they've been thrown in a heap like that in something of a hurry. Indeed. You could help yourself to a Japanese man's shirt, perhaps? I'm sure you made mention of packing too few. I'm very likely drowned in one of Seishiro's shirts. No, I'll just buy any extras I need, I think. That's a very sizable trunk indeed. Seishiro is partial to all things large. And a rather clumsy fellow if he failed to notice that he left that behind. Perhaps he left it on purpose. It's lighter than you might think, but still a hindrance to a speedy escape. Pity. It's locked, so we can't look inside. Surely 5 seconds from now the situation will be quite different, though. Sadly not, it has a 7-digit combination lock. And I'm not in a morose enough mood to work through the combinations at present. These are the rules of passage. Passengers may not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. Additionally, there are several severe punishments for stowing away in wardrobes and/or travel cases. I feel the rules have increased since I last read them. Probably just my imagination. What about the fact that they're not straight on the wall? Doesn't that strike you? You may be right. Probably just your imagination, though. I trifle. As you know, what I always say, Mikotoba, there is nothing important about trifles. It's probably just my imagination, but I think that might be slightly off. Plenty of reading material to keep passengers occupied on the long sea voyages. I found the mixture of classic literature and easy reading to be most satisfactory, I must say. Whoever stocked this bookcase was a hopeless heretic. There's no copy of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, my dear fellows. I'm afraid it's just me. But no, you're quite right. More blasphemous than overlooking the Bible. I shall leave a copy behind. I just happen to have one with me. You're a true missionary of the Church of Great Detectives, aren't you? I didn't see the new book appear, though. This is where the rules should have been. The wall is slightly different color here. Do you see? Indeed, what we have observed arises from when a frame has been hanging for some time is removed. Perhaps your friend is an art thief. Now there's a bold deduction worthy of a great detective, I'm sure. He may very well be the elusive thief who's been plaguing France's galleries of late. I think perhaps we should focus our attention elsewhere, Sholmes, don't you? That outline on the wall. I feel as though I might have spotted something of a similar shape and size elsewhere. You're still here. Ah, Abel Seaman Stroganov. Hello again. I was beginning to think you'd never materialize. You are waiting for me? Of course. I was expecting you to burst in with a hearty Russian profanity far sooner. I was in trouble with Captain because you played before. Poor innocent chicken. It's all your fault. Ship is leaving port soon. Get off. Of course, we shall disembark presently, my dear fellow, but first, there is something that must be done. A great deduction. What are you talking about? Why, naturally. The debunking of your deceit and the bearing of the truth. Keikoi? I'm afraid I see through your lies. For one thing, Mr. Jigoku has not yet left this vessel at all. And for another, my dear Seaman Stroganoff, you know exactly where the man is, even as we speak, don't you? How can you... Good gracious, Sholmes. You mean you've worked it out? All of it? It's really been too long, hasn't it, old friend? 10 years, no less. So, would you care to join me for a dance of my inimitable logic and reasoning? Nothing would please me more. What is this? It's called the gameplay mechanic, sir. We have but minutes until the vessel puts to sea. No games now. Time for us of the essence. Mr. Stroganoff, allow me to remind you of your earlier claim. You told us that Jigoku left the ship some 2 hours ago. That's what I said. Sadly, that is a rather clumsy lie. You see, there is something in this room that is quite clearly contradicts it. What? Yes, of course. I see you've noted it too, Mikotoba. Then please, do take the lead. What in this cabin shows the impossibility of Jigoku having disembarked 2 hours ago. See, the last 3 years have done to your observational skills then, Mikotoba. It's been 10 years since we last did this, Sholmes, not 3. Why, of course it has, quite. Now all the clues... is that a reference? Now all the clues are here in this cabin for your eyes to see. As I say, you must not merely look, but observe. Observe, and the answer becomes clear. So, impress me. I think I can manage that. The ice.
Take that!
Perhaps you should have cleared away that glass. I'm curious that the ice shouldn't have melted. Shouldn't have melted despite it being abandoned 2 hours ago. It would appear that the man was here in this very cabin until moments before our arrival. With this well-chilled glass in hand, get your mind off the refreshment, Sholmes. One might even conclude that somebody informed him of our boarding. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Stroganoff? But why would Seishiro run from us? Because before we consider that question, allow me to confirm one small matter. Would it be correct in saying that these first-class cabins of the SS Grouse are the same ones in which you and Mr. Jigoku were accommodated on our voyage from Japan? That's right, they are. I was in the cabin next door, and Seishiro was, yes, 50 days in this very cabin during our voyage. As I suspected, for you see, there are traces in the cabin of a dark secret that Mr. Jigoku had to hide. What traces? I know nothing about this. And this is news to you, is it, Mr. Stroganoff? Yeah. Sholmes, what exactly are you getting at? As I said, there are traces in this cabin of all nefarious activity. Something that appears out of place, which I'm quite sure you would have escaped your notice. Something out of place in here. That's the key to this, Mikotoba. The remnants of the dark deed that took place in here are being masked by something quite incongruous. I must say I didn't foresee ever doing this dance of deduction with you again, Mikotoba. Not quite, but life is full of unexpected twists and turns, as we well know. Now then, let us see if we can uncover the truth here. Yes, you have the floor, my dear fellow.
Take
The
that!
rules. It's the rules of passage in this frame here. They're obviously out of place. The way they're hanging crooked on the wall, as if they were put there in a hurry. Yes, as I'm sure you've already concluded. The frame was originally over here. The shape and size are a perfect match. You are right. When did the frame move? Hardly the most observant of crewmen, are you, Mr. Stroganoff? I would think your captain is quite justified in having his reservations about your reliability. Oh dear, that really seemed to touch a nerve. So, Mikotoba, why don't we lift the frame off the wall? That looks like a bullet hole. What? Who has been shooting walls? I see. The projectile has been removed. Clearly the careful occupant of this room has already disposed of it. Now then, Mr. Stroganoff. I had the distinct impression that you're attempting to shield said occupant. I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I try to protect Eastern Stranger? Ah, so we're talking about the same man, I see. Good. I'm sure we can get to the bottom of this in no time, aren't you? Because there's some very noteworthy evidence that explains the reason why you're lying for the man. Yes, you've been told to keep up this pretense as clearly shown by... I don't really know how to approach this one, Sholmes. Ah, my dear Mikotoba, simply keep first principles in mind. Study your subject from every angle. And I'm quite sure you'll see it. In fact, I put a wager on it. So I'm to glare at the fellow from all sides. Well, I can certainly do that.
Take that!
It's almost too obvious for words. Quite. The universal language of the world, money. Ah. And I'd wager that the Eastern fellow in question is Seishiro Jigoku, yes? Gah. So I presume you realize that this is what this means. There are clear signs that a crime has been committed in this cabin. And the way you're going, sir, you'll find yourself accused of being an accomplice. But I believe you know, Mr. Stroganoff. You know where Mr. Jigoku is hiding at this precise moment in time. As always, Mikotoba, in a matter of deduction, the further glance is your unfaltering ally. Yes, I think you're onto something here, Sholmes. You found the chink in this burly fellow's armor. You need only follow the man's gaze to know where our prey is hiding. Slightest flicker of the pupils, minutely delayed blink. Nothing escapes my attention, even that which is barely perceptible. You could hardly call this barely perceptible, Sholmes. The man turned his entire head. It's not exactly what you describe as a furtive glance, is it? It's almost too obvious. But we shall let your tapping toes decide, my dear fellow.
Take that!
You turned immediately to look at this large trunk, didn't you? Ah. The truth is, Seishiro Jigoku was unable to escape from the ship in time. And is, at this very moment, doing his best to stifle his breath inside this trunk. If he still has a breath to take, I fear he may be running dangerously low on air. Imagine you didn't count on us making a nuisance of ourselves for quite so long. I think it would be in everyone's best interest for us to open the trunk as quickly as possible. But how can we? Are you forgetting about the combination lock? You don't know the 7-digit code. The combination lock can't be opened from inside the trunk. Therefore, there must have been an arrangement for somebody to open it after our departure. Of course. In short, before Jigoku hid himself inside that trunk, he must have told somebody the 7-digit number for the lock. And I'm sure you can confirm, Mr. Stroganoff. No, I don't know anything. I don't know about a combination code. Don't move a muscle, my good seaman. Huh? Now, Mikotoba, would you do the honors and open the trunk? How on earth do you expect me? That's a good one. 5, 6, 3, 1, 0, 4, 5. It's a 7-digit number, remember? Quickly now, we have little time. Okay. 5. Oh, I guess it's a 9 then. No. 0. 3. 1. 0. 4. 5.
Take that!
Did you get it wrong? I guess I read it wrong. I have to try this again. Yeah, give me the hint I didn't need. Okay. Let me see how... I love how you can't actually turn it upside down. You have to, like... grab my monitor and turn it upside down, or literally, like, turn my head over. It's supposed to be a 2. Okay, I'll try 5, 2, 3, 1, 0, 4, 5.
Take that!
Yes, I literally turned my head upside down. I literally, like, looked at my monitor, like, upside down. That did it. It opened. You had to meddle, didn't you? Well, Eugen, you've found me now. Seishiro. I was really hoping beyond hope not to find you here, you know? But you're not entirely unsurprised, I take it? No, quite. I just wish it were some other way. Well, are you ever going to introduce me? Ah, your reputation precedes you, Mr. Sholmes. I've read stories of many of your exploits. Excuse my manners, Sholmes. This is Mr. Jigoku, my old friend and traveling companion. The devil is in the details, Migotoba. I believe you meant to say, your old friend and traveling companion. Who made the cowardly decision to flee the country without a word to anyone when things turned sour. I see my reputation precedes me as well. What an honor. Well, Seishiro, are you going to explain all this? You know it all by now, I imagine. That you didn't know, of course, is that 3 days ago, on the night before our arrival in Britain, an attempt was made on my life here in this very ship. By the Reaper of the Bailey. Yes, I've since heard. Because you were once prosecuted by the Reaper, weren't you? 10 years ago now, mind you. And I had no idea at the time what a dangerous individual he was. Anyway, when we arrived in London to find the symposium was postponed until goodness knows when, it became all too apparent to me that I might very well be targeted again. So you decided to flee the capital without saying a word to me about it. I'm afraid so, yes. Of course, I realize now that I really ought to have confided in you. It's somewhat surprising, I must say. What is? Well, first-class cabins aboard luxury steamships are in very short supply. It's more than a little hard to believe that this one just happened to be available. So says the protagonist of some colorful short stories. Well, I don't care for your opinion. The cabin did just happen to be available. So I purchased a ticket, and here I am. I've just seen for myself the obvious remnants of that incident in this cabin. So you'd already purchased your return ticket before we even docked in Dover, had you? To prevent anyone else taking this cabin and seeing the evidence, is that it? Eugen, I have nothing to say to you. Well, in a mere 5 minutes, the ship will set off on its outward voyage and not make port again until Italy. I'm afraid we must insist that you disembark with us at once. You have no jurisdiction over my movements. We have this, Seishiro. Take it. What is it? It's a subpoena from the Old Bailey. You're a man of the law. You know what the ramifications of ignoring a document like this from the British courts would be. You came prepared then, Eugen. Come on, let's go. One moment. What is it, Sholmes? Inside Mr. Jigoku's trunk. I found this rather fascinating trinket. What is that? Seishiro? I can't help you, I'm afraid. Some small component from something. But what? I have no idea. By the look of on his face, I think he generally doesn't know. Well, let's pocket it as a small souvenir of a brief sojourn in France. Well, young Naruhodo, I think we've done as much as we can, I'm afraid. The rest will be on the shoulders of you and your assistant. Suma Asogi, I know you, and I know you wouldn't lie. But still, there's no doubt that you're holding something back. And you know more than you're saying. During the past 30 minutes while the court was adjourned, all possible efforts were expended. But sadly, Mr. Jigoku's whereabouts could not be ascertained. We must accept the unfortunate conclusion that the Reaper has already done the deed. There's no sense in wasting any more of the court's time. The prosecution calls for an immediate verdict.
Objection!
No, the trial cannot end now. You're a Japanese man, Ryanosuke. You should know when to lay down your sword. and you should know never to presume when the battle is won. The court has already been presented with all the evidence and heard all relevant testimony, and there can only be one conclusion, that the accused is guilty. All relevant testimony, far from it. There's still a crucial witness, from whom the court is yet to hear a single word of testimony. In that case, call your witness to the stand at once, counsel. Yes, my lord. Tomorrow, if possible. The witness is already on his way, and scheduled to arrive tomorrow. Who on earth is this crucial witness? Seishiro Jigoku. The very man allegedly murdered by the Reaper. Judge Jigoku, you found him? But the investigations of every policing resource in the capital suggested that Jigoku is already dead. How in the name of God did you find the man? He was located in France during the recess, at the port of Dunkirk. Thanks to one of Mr. Herlock Sholmes' famous deductions. Herlock Sholmes. Inspector Gregson almost certainly met with Mr. Jigoku on the night of his death, because along with Prosecutor Asogi, Gregson was on a mission to assassinate the man. Which means that Seishiro Jigoku is the sole witness who can clarify exactly what happened aboard the SS Grouse on the 31st of October. Well, it would appear that it's too soon to move to adjudication at this point. The prosecution concurs. The court must hear Mr. Jigoku's testimony. No judgment should be passed until all testimony has been considered. In that case, I hereby call the end of today's proceedings. Court will reconvene at the same hour as tomorrow. No objections from either side? No, my lord. No objections, my lord. We live to fight another day, by the skin of our teeth. That was terribly mishandled. The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamor around the courtroom. But outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. We have returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help. Think nothing of it. I believe you've had an even more wearing day than Mikotoba and I know. You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in court earlier. So this prosecutor, Asogi, had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I mean, it's incredible. To think that he even entertained the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. When all this started, almost a year ago now. Mr. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is another country, Mr. Sholmes. So, what news of Judge Shigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. Poor Professor Mikotoba. This must be quite a shock for him. Ah, yes, I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put upon you for the matter only yesterday. You put upon me, Sholmes. I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you've had a reply already. What was so urgent though, Mr. Sholmes? Such matters can wait until later. I am far too hungry for an involved conversation at present. Well, that's good news, because supper's ready, everyone. Ah, and what a feast it is. If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak, and kidney pie. Yorkshire pudding. A lot of meat stuff. Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up. And probably all don't really taste that good, because this is all British food. In that case, I think I'll seat myself just here. This place appears to be only one seat, with a helping of pheasant as well. Oh, sorry, Hurley, not there. Why ever not? Are we set places this evening? Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy. For me? That's right, I made it especially for you, Professor Mickey. I see. Well, that's terribly kind of you. It's a shame, really. What do you mean? Well, for a brief moment, I believed it. That Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean. Oh. Iris, do you mean... Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday. I secretly listened in on the conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left. What? The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But in actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikotoba are Iris's father. Yes, about that, Iris. You know, I know. You can't tell me at the moment. Oh, Iris. The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. Oh, no, that's quite alright. Then why don't I get any apologetic pheasant? So just two is Iris's father. I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. So then, let us dine, while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. Fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious. As much as you like, there is always seconds. This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan, and about Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes. Ah. Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy. Even though I've played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes, could I discuss some things with you? Certainly, my dear fellow, I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. No doubt, you're hungry to learn more of my deep love of game. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. So, what was in the telegram you received back from Japan, then? Oh, this. I thank my lucky stars it arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. Kayasogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. What? Those 4 names? We've come across that exact name list before. Right. Kazuma, Shin, Gregson, and Wilson. So I was wrong. Susato wasn't on that list. Gregson was. Wilson was the Reaper? They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. It appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder. Turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. Exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, they deciphered a fragment of a message. Sogi, Shin, Gregson, and Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So, why are the names coming up again now? Yes, where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Mr. Sholmes? I have here the message I have wired yesterday. Allow me to read it to you. Enter Judge Shigoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names. Need by tomorrow. Naruhodo. Sent it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. You asked Inspector Hosonaga to undertake such an onerous task for you? And in my name? I wonder what guise he opted for this time. My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyway, the list of names was found in Seishiro's office, as Sholmes predicted. So you mean that my mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent to Judge Shigoku. He was the intended recipient. I don't believe it. But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies. I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Buria, it was all for nothing. Kazuma wasn't dead at all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us, your great detective lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan. His remains, you mean? Precisely, Miss Susato. And then, I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead. Oh my, you mean... The arrangement between our 2 countries was already in place. 1 university student lawyer and 1 judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? The terms of the study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. In light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. Right. So, you manipulated me. I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I am quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe it. But if it was all contrived... I mean, what happened was treated by authorities as a murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. What do you suppose became of her? Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. I seem to remember Miss Susato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then. I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain? The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see. Oh. The omen that at this very moment in time is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. You see these little things all over the place, don't you? It's part of the top of a pocket watch that you twist to set the time, isn't it? It's called the crown, I believe. The watch would be quite useless without one. The crown, like that sits on the top of a monarch's head, that's a very grand name for such a tiny part. But actually, yes, Mr. Naruhodo? If this was a crown, I have a feeling I might have seen a monarch around here somewhere with a very bare head. If a monarch you mean pocket watch, then I'm quite sure you have. Following the departure from the port of Dunkirk, all crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 p.m. in order to review evacuation procedures. The drill will take 20 minutes. Okay. I have to present all the stuff now. Keep presenting stuff until something comes up. There was no room for doubt with your instructions in the telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Judge Shigoku's office that should be searched, so you obviously knew that's where the list of names would be found. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we only learned of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now. And only because they appeared as part of a top-secret government communications that were leaked. That's true, yes. But at the time, you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that, approximately this time last year in fact, when you were both still in Japan. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments. You're perpetually doing what? How? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Herlock Sholmes, when he has designs of knowing it. Oh my, Mr. Sholmes, what a fabulous line. Now, 1 month after that list of 4 names was wired to the recipient Jigoku in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learned of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turns out, I was partly correct and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names, the tragedy to which they're all somehow connected. As I said, when I learnt of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else on the list, who I believe to be recently deceased. What? Who? A Shin. As it was transcribed in Japanese script, in fact, Miss Asa Shin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known among London's unsavory classes. Oh, I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed. And accordingly I became fearful of the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list. Kei Sogi and T. Gregson. Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself. I determined it would be safest if young Asogi stayed away from Britain. So that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. Exactly. So you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes. Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I'd recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course. So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? I didn't know. Oh, Iris. I know he wasn't my daddy, but still. That's very sad. So sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No. But what you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis. Big hole, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes. You mean about Asa Shin, I presume. Of course. Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Jezail Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago, in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. And upon hearing that startling revelation, right, the hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy. What topsy? What do you mean by when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I believed all 4 names on the list were names to be on the list to be the names of victims, but they're actually the names of assassins. However, I was mistaken. Very much so. Asa Shin was a killer. So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is it? Indeed, and it would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Mr. Dr. Wilson, her visiting student status being merely a front. Which would, of course, explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Shin is because he was the target of an assassination. And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? Well, does it not strike you? There is another among the four, who subsequently became a visiting student. Wait, you mean... But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean... Kazuma? Oh... He came to Britain to kill Gregson. He did say in court earlier today. Yes, on 31st of October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. And the mission was an assassination of the Mark. Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now. Surely not. In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement on, one might say, detailing an assassin exchange. Assassin exchange? How could Kazuma possibly have gotten involved in something like that? It's assumed that we have two parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those two parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would then be an assassin exchange. So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target. And then the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain in order to eliminate his target. It certainly does sound like an exchange. But what on earth is the point? Don't forget, Naruhodo, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction. Oh yes? Such jurisdiction should be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our two countries. So the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels. The highest levels? Right. Strongheart Jigoku. These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive but by contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular devilish scheme. That disassociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. Wait a minute, Sholmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins as you're suggesting, it would mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Shishiro Jigoku at all. It would have been Asoga's target was actually Inspector Gregson. What? Kazuma was here for Gregson? So Judge Jigoku wasn't actually the mark. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. And he succeeded. I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. Mr. Sholmes. I told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. And he did. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition. That he'd be transferred to the Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. Alright everyone, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, Hurley? I mean, look at the time. Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember. It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would have been my big sister. Sorry, Iris. I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. So who's her dad? Sholmes? Jigoku? Strongheart? Barak von Zeeks? This guy? What in the world? Huh. Were you? What if somebody like me would be worthy? I would be delighted to become your sister. What, really? Oh yes, without question. So you'll teach me all the ways you know to throw Runo to the floor? Yes, yes, of course. It'll be my pleasure. You didn't have to agree quite so readily. Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's going to be my big sister, you can be my big brother if you want, Runo. Huh? I mean, yes, of course. If you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. If they did a fan translation of this, I presume they'd be like, I can call you Oni-chan. Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. I've raised you so well. Ha 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 ha. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Right, I'm going to work extra hard for tomorrow now. Because it's my big brother and sister. What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what? Hehe. You'll just have to wait and see. Oh. Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths while posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Jigoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I had been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden, but at the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world, standing steadfastly behind me. And Kazuma is not in that picture. And that will be it for today, I think. Very likely this will be the last trial. Yeah. So what we concluded was Kazuma was the hitman, right? He was the one hired to take out Gregson. Then who was the one who hired Kazuma? Who's the person who ordered the assassination? And who was the person who hired Brett? They could be Strongheart and Jigoku. And so those are the 2 baddies. I'm still trying to hold on to it being Strongheart in the end. I'm hoping I'm right just because I hope I'm right always. I like being right.